African history, Uganda Obote'S downfall 1971 coup. Obote's downfall 1971 coup. A military coup can be defined as a sudden overthrow of a legitimate government by the army. It should be noted that many African countries got their independence with civilian rule, educated rulers. However, three years after independence, a wave of coups and counter-coups rocked Africa, and Uganda was not exceptional. On 25th Jan 1971, Idi Amin Dada overthrew Obote, who had gone to Singapore to attend a Commonwealth conference. The coup of 1971 was executed by Ugandan soldiers led by Idi Amin with the help of Britain and Israel, and many other factors accounted for the coup. Causes of the coup. The coup was caused by Obote's rising dictatorship. Obote interfered with people's freedom of expression. He detained many people without trial, including ministers like Grace Ibingira, Mathias Ngobai, Ben Kirunik, the leader of Democratic Party DP, Prince Badru Kakangulu, and also abrogated the Constitution of 1962, banned kingdoms, and failed to organize elections. Hence, this level of dictatorship led to the coup of 1971. High level of tribalism and nepotism both in the army and civil service contributed to the coup of 1971. Obote recruited his relatives, e.g. Langis and Nacholis, and most soldiers were illiterate. There was the Lango Development Plan of 1967, which ensured giving key government posts to the people from Akakoro County, and Amin wanted to destroy this legacy and also get people from his region, West Nile, and other parts of the country. Hence, the coup became inevitable. Obote's move to the left led to the military coup of 1971. It should be noted that in 1969, Obote made an announcement while at Nakavubo about the introduction of the Common Man's Charter characterized by socialist policies. Obote was trying to emulate what Nairo had done in 1967, and this annoyed Britain, which professed capitalism, and they supported Amin to stage a coup because of Obote's movement to the left. Divisionism in the army led to the coup of 1971 in Uganda. Obote's army was divided into three units, e.g. Special Forces, General Service Unit, and the Uganda Armed Forces. The GSU was composed of 1,000 elite soldiers headed by Obote's cousin Adoko Nakonand with the bodyguards and spies of Obote. They enjoyed privileges at the expense of the regular army, which annoyed Amin to stage a coup of 1971. The economic crisis of 1969 contributed to the military coup of 1971. Many people were very poor due to the nationalization policy that left many unemployed. People were languishing in abject poverty, highly taxed, and inflation was at the apex. Hence, this economic hardship compelled Amin to stage the coup of 1971. The fall in prices due to the 1969 economic hardships led the coup. Obote's government was characterized by increased prices of essential goods like food, medicine, and clothing. People also lacked the needed revenue to buy the commodities for their welfare. Hence, Amin used this to plan for the coup of 1971. The unemployment and economic instability contributed to the coup of 1971. Obote's government was characterized by high levels of unemployment, and most of the juicy jobs were monopolized by Acholis and Langais from Akakoro. Ugandans had the qualifications but couldn't easily get jobs, which caused resentment in the army. Inflation was high, and this made people not to cope up with this situation that made the coup of 1971 inevitable. The creation of the General Service Unit contributed to the coup. This was a section of the army composed of elite soldiers headed by Adoko Nakonand, Obote's cousin. It spied on the general army and was the bodyguard for Obote. They accumulated a lot of wealth and were very rich. Hence, Amin staged the coup with a view of bringing fairness in the army and Uganda as a whole. Obote's failure to call a meeting of the Defense Council led to the coup. The Ugandan army had many problems which ought to have been resolved by the Defense Council, but Obote reluctantly refused to have any meeting and instead made promotions, demotions, and transfer on his own. There was also a rumour that Amin was to be replaced by Oyatoljok, and Amin quickly responded before his replacement by staging a coup. Hence, Obote's failure to meet the Defense Council led to his downfall. Obote's isolationist policy contributed to the coup. It's true that Obote did not have good bilateral relations with Kenyans and Tanzanian workers, whom he expelled and prevented exports from these countries. This annoyed Ugandans, who could not get what they couldn't produce, and these neighbouring countries therefore supported the coup of 1971. The failure of Obote to organise elections in 1967 led to the military coup of 1971. Obote's government failed to organise elections as per the demands of the constitution. There were no signs of elections, and Obote was becoming more of a dictator than a democrat. UPC candidates stood in more than one constituency for parliamentary elections, and the army wouldn't tolerate this, which brought discontent, and this was displayed by the coup of 1971. Amin's failure to account for the 40 million shillings intended for the army. The Auditor's General report indicated that there was gross expenditure in the army, and Amin, together with Felix and the Minister of Defence, were to answer. Hence, Amin feared the investigations and organised the coup to block the embezzlement scandal. African history, Uganda Obote'S downfall 1971 coup. High level of corruption in Obote's government accounts for the downfall of his government in 1971. Obote placed his henchmen in all offices, especially the ministers, which led to the poor performance in the day-to-day running of the government. There were no disciplinary measures that were taken to investigate the high degree of corruption. There were so many weaknesses which people used to swindle the government funds from the public, and hence corruption went unchecked, and it laid a fertile ground for the coup of 1971. Heavy taxation of the masses led to the coup of 1971. The masses were burdened with so many taxes, e.g. security tax, graduated tax, sales tax and development tax. Indeed, people were very poor, the majority unemployed, and this made them to get disgruntled with the government. Therefore, Amin staged a coup in order to eliminate these uncalled for taxes and bring fairness in Uganda. Obote's failure to control robbery and violence contributed to the coup of 1971. There was a lot of robbery and violence that cost people's lives and property. There was increased condoism, and the government took no practical action to address the plight of Ugandans. Hence Amin used this high degree of condoism to stage a coup. Amin's thirst for power contributed to the coup of 1971. It is historically known that Amin was semi-educated, and he had been referred to as an idiot and political buffoon. Obote made him an army commander, thinking that he had no organizational ability. Amin therefore wanted to prove that he was not a coward and needed to enjoy the privileges of head of state. Amin also had a peasantry background that made him to have the mass support of the nationals in the country. Personal differences between Amin and Obote led to the coup. Amin was an illiterate and Obote was a skillful leader and an elite. Obote promoted, demoted and transferred officers without the knowledge of the army commander. Also in the gold scandal, Amin cheated his boss, which caused tension. Obote promoted the Langis, which annoyed Amin. Amin also got involved in the death of Brigadier Okoya and his wife in 1970 in Gulu town, which made him to be insecure. Amin was threatened to be replaced by Ayatollah by the call that Obote made, hence the coup of 1971. Protracted wrangles within UPC party contributed to the coup of 1971. UPC had generated many groups that disagreed on various fundamental issues, and the radicals like Bidandia Soli, Grace Abingira, Corona Kajina and the Baganda Conservatives had been expelled. This weakened the party and made Amin to capitalize on these wrangles, hence the coup of 1971. Obote's intentions to arrest Amin led to the coup of 1971. Obote ordered for the arrest of Amin while in for Commonwealth meeting in Singapore. Unfortunately, the telephone of Ayatollah was interrupted by a friend to Amin, who quickly tapped him, and they disseminated the information that made General Idi Amin to react by convincing the rest of the army officers that Obote had ordered for the demotion and arrest of all soldiers not from Akakora that caused fear, and the soldiers joined the coup. The impact of other successful coups in Africa led to the coup of 1971. It is on record that continental Africa was characterized by coups and counter-coups in late 1960s, and Uganda was not exceptional. Therefore, the success of the Togo coup of 1963, Congo 1965, Ghana 1966, Algeria 1965, Libya 1969 made Amin to become confident that he would succeed in Uganda. Summary of the causes: Obote's over-reliance on the army, tribalism/nepotism, Obote's move to the left/socialism, divisionism in the army, economic crisis of 1969, prolonged state of emergency, fall in prices of commodities, mass employment, high degree of corruption, failure to convene the Defense Council meetings, Obote's isolationist policy, Obote's failure to organize elections as per the provisions of the 1962 Constitution, heavy taxation, conflicts in UPC, high degree of condoism/robbery, Obote's over-reliance on the army that betrayed him, abrogation of the 1962 Constitution, creation of the National Service Project that made Ugandans suffer, the redundant army, formation of the General Service Unit GSU, African history, Uganda Obote's downfall, 1971 coup, Amin's thirst for power, Amin's desire to prove his courage after the 1969 attempted assassination of Obote, Amin's desire to stop investigations into the death of Brigadier Okoye in Gulu town and his wife, external factors like the support of Britain and Israel, other successful coups, e.g. 1969 Libyan, 1966 Ghana and 1952 Egyptian coup, Amin's failure to account for the 40 million shillings in the defence budget, personal differences between Obote and Amin, QN.